Doing my national anthem bit. I hope you're all well at home. It's a real pleasure to be here again on this Monday evening. I am in the studio tonight, of course, with my usual formidable, wonderful guest, Mrs. Eweja. She's going to give us a recap in a moment as to what we have learned in Chapter 2. Now, if you don't have a copy of the Constitution, I know some of you have been asking me where you would get the Constitution from. Please go to www.priscillawinkle.com, and on the current projects, you'll be able to download your very own copy of the Constitution. It's important that you download a copy so that you can keep abreast of our conversations. You can download it onto your tablet, your phone, your laptop, whichever one makes you comfortable. Download it there and join in with the conversation. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to do a recap, but before I do that, let me quickly say to all of you out there that tune in weekly that I don't get to hear your voice, thank you so much. Those of you that watch in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Nigeria, I hope that I can hear from you today, and also those of you in the United States. But last week, Ade, Hillary, Princess Rose, Henry, Mark, Jeff, Daniel, you guys, you're the champions. You always seem to be able to get through. I don't know how you do it. But let's hope that we will get to hear from you again later on today. And thank you all so much for remaining my faithful audience and staying with me every Monday. I appreciate it. But let me hand over now to Mrs. Eweja. Good evening, ma. Welcome.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling today?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Good, good, good. As I said there in the intro, we were just going to do a brief recap because we've been talking on Chapter 2. And the Chapter 2 of the Constitution basically was telling us about the fundamental objective and direct principles of state policy. In effect, some of our rights, our benefits, what they are supposed to do for us. But we've learned that it's not justiciable. According to Chapter 166C. If you download a copy of the Constitution from priscillawinkle.com, you'll be able to keep up and follow us. Chapter 166C says doesn't allow for its justiciability. Justiciability meaning that if they're not doing it, we can't take them to court. Now, give us a brief update because we're going to move on to Chapter 4, which is our fundamental human rights. Chapter 3 speaks about citizenship. Not that we're not going to do that, but we're looking at the key areas of benefits and the key areas that benefits us more as in our rights as Nigerians. So
we've been discussing on Chapter 2, and so far we've learned a lot about a right under that particular section.
Indeed.
And of course the limitation as well.
Yes.
So Chapter 2 has to do with social economic rights, because before you move on to chapter 4, like I said, they are intrinsically linked to each other, because when you discuss Chapter 2, you have to have Chapter 4 as well, because both of them deals with human rights issue. And as we said, under that particular chapter, fundamental objective and directive principles of state policy, some of the provisions there have to do with rights, economic rights, educational rights, and what have you. And we have also seen the limitation under Section 66C. Like I said, it is not over yet.
No.
Though we cannot assess it because of the limitation, but I've said under the Section 660C, the National Assembly has the legislative competence
to,
I like that, to establish
legislative competence.
To establish authorities that will deal with those rights as specified under fundamental human rights.
Right.
And
fundamental objectives and principles.
Now, the constitutional review is going on, and I hope that they are watching. They will be able to know the amendment to be made so that Nigerians will have access to that chapter if they amend it, as it were.
Okay.
That's what I can say about that, because we've discussed so much on chapter 2 now, and I believe that Nigerians will be able to know what we have said, those limitations, and what are those things we expect the government to do, and the National Assembly, it is incumbent on them to make those changes.
But then, of course, they cannot make the changes without the demand for the changes. So if you've been watching, and you've, as our learned friend have told us that what these rights are, and the fact that we cannot at the moment subscribe to them. But if we want that to be changed, there's a constitutional review going on at the moment. If there are enough people that could send in messages to say that they want to do something about this, it's not just one person shouting, but I believe that if we all shout in unison, or speak in unison, just like the child not a bride situation, somebody will listen. It will not fall on deaf ears. So let's all pull ourselves together and do something about it, because without that, we're not going to get, because there are some very good benefits in chapter 2. Welfare benefits, they're supposed to provide that. They're supposed to provide adequate
employment
shelter,
benefits,
housing. They're supposed to provide employment benefits. Whether we gathered or not is not the issue. Let's remember that. It's not about whether or not we gathered for the Constitution or we didn't gather for the Constitution, or if the Constitution is fraudulent or it's not fraudulent, or it's religious based or it's not religious based. The fact of the matter is that it is our Constitution, and it is the legal document that binds us together, and it is the legal documents which gives us rights and benefits, and we cannot sit back and not participate, at least to voice our concerns, because in so doing, we can then, access these benefits and so on. Now, we're going to look at chapter 4, and as I mentioned earlier, if you have not yet downloaded your copy of the Constitution, please go to priscillawinkwood.com and download, so that you can, keep with us. You will know where we're talking about. So it's not just we speaking here in the studio, but it is you also, knowing what we're talking about and seeing it for yourself. So it's not just hearsay, but you also have your own bona fide copy of it. So chapter 4 of the Constitution speaks about the fundamental rights for every Nigerian. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Chapter 2, like I said, deals with social economic rights.
That's right.
While chapter 4 deals with civil and political rights.
Right.
What are fundamental human rights as specified in chapter 4?
Okay.
Those are rights that came into being from the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which was incorporated into the Nigerian Constitution by virtue of the National Assembly legislation, which was done over 20-something years ago.
Okay.
I mean, to be precise, 1983. And they now specify those rights and refer to them as civil and political rights. Because if you look at that right, it's under chapter 4, section 33 to 46.
That's correct.
And when you look at those sections, we have right to life, right to dignity of human person,
yes,
right to personal liberty, right to freedom of expression, fair hearing, and there are categories. Some are categorized as civil, while others are categorized as political.
Right.
So when you look at those rights, it's just to promote and protect human rights, which is a universal declaration.
Yes.
So Nigeria now, they have incorporated it, and they expect that people will know all those rights, as it were, under that particular chapter of the law. Let's look at it.
Okay.
What do we mean by human rights? Those are rights that are absolute. rights.
When we say absolute,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolute in the sense that it cannot be trampled upon.
it can't be trampled on. Can it be challenged?
It can be, it can be
Okay,
challenged, yeah.
okay.
And there are limitations under it as well, but not when you
Not
discuss
as much as
in
we
chapter
saw
2.
in chapter 2.
In chapter 2.
Okay.
So, I mean, those rights are absolute, but they are permissible derogations.
Given that they're absolute rights,
Yeah.
Because I want you to break this down.
I'm going to break it down
as
because,
usual, like
as usual, yes, I said,
you know?
chapter 4, because you have to know this right. Yeah, so if you look at the preamble, because you cannot just jump into fundamental human rights without looking at the preamble of the Constitution, which says, the preamble says, promotion of welfare of persons, good governance, based on the principle of freedom, equality, and justice, as we discussed under section 17. So when you look at that, we have freedom, equality, and justice. So when you now look at chapter 4, that says, okay, these are the rights. Right to life.
So when we say right to life, what do we mean by that?
What we mean is that nobody shall be deprived
Of their life.
of their life.
Okay, I
Under
get
that
that.
section,
I get that. Now,
Everybody is entitled to
have their
right to life.
to a right
That's
to life.
Yeah, section
Okay.
33. Yeah.
So, you know, in a nation that we're speaking about, for instance, you know, some would say life is cheap.
It's cheap. Yeah.
Because it would appear that every and anybody can just take away someone else's life, without much being done.
Yes, I will explain that.
Please explain.
Yeah, if you look at that particular section, it says every person is entitled to rights of life.
Right.
Save except there's a proviso there. Save except in execution of a sentence of court order.
But this execution thing has changed, has it not? That law has changed in Nigeria.
No, what I'm saying, no, we still have death penalty in Nigeria.
We do, but not in every state.
Not in every state. Okay. I mean, it's, you know, what I'm saying is when you look at that section, it means that there is a limitation. But there are some instances, exceptions.
Where your life can be taken away.
Can be taken away. But I'm going to discuss that later, but let's just look at it. What do we mean by life? That is, you have access to your life. Nobody can be deprived of your life, except in accordance with the law.
Okay.
That is those instances that they have specified, that in these instances, your life can be terminated.
That's right.
You understand what I mean by that?
Okay. Now, bear with me. Again, if you don't have a copy of the Constitution, if you have just joined us, we're looking at Chapter 4, Section 33. We're just speaking about every person having a right to life, except in a situation where the court orders it any different. But everybody is entitled to have their life. And
I mean, entitlement to life, I mean, right to life, nobody shall be deprived of that life, except in those instances that have been specified. Now, when you look at our situation in Nigeria, life is, just like you said, life is so cheap. People can just, especially police, the security officers, you know, the way they, go about torturing human beings.
By the way, security officers are supposed to be a first point of protection.
And when you look at section 14.2b, like we mentioned.
We haven't really gone into detail. We're going to look at that in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, when you look at that particular sections and say, oh, life is so cheap in Nigeria. How do you measure life? In a situation where you have, I'm talking of, instances where you have kidnappers, you know, kidnapping people here and there, where you have security agencies saying because they are hiding under the extrajudicial protection that, okay, because I want to use force, because they are not sure. And there's exceptions to that. You don't use force if you're not sure whether that person is harmed, you know.
But then I think they use force willy-nilly.
And that's what I'm saying. They now use that section 33.2 to protect themselves. That, okay, we cannot say that you are deprived of your life because if the security agencies, they use force, maybe they want to arrest you for lawful arrest, protection of property, protection of all those things that is stated under that particular section, then you can say, well, I've done it because the law provides that, I can do it. But what I'm saying is, for life, it's very essential. You don't deprive people of their life, except in accordance with the law. The laws are specified those instances. And what are those instances? When the security agent, maybe you are a criminal person, a suspect, let me say suspect now, and they want to effect an arrest, you know, maybe for protection of property, in public interest, public order, security, and what have you. Then in those instances, then they're justified to use force. But then that's only if you resist. That is if you insist. Yeah, you can't use force. The kind of force you use must be commensurate.
That's right. You can't
it's
just use force.
And must be reasonable as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not just because I've been protected by the law.
Yeah.
That it means that I have to do.
You can just use.
You can just use force. I can remember that in when we did the fuel subsidy.
2012, January 2012.
January 2012.
Yeah.
There was this guy that was killed.
Protest.
That was killed during the riot to protest and everything. And I believe the case is in court now. And the police officer that was charged to court for the murder of that guy said he was harmed, and the guy was not harmed. You know, he thought maybe, because maybe you can't just assume. You can't assume. You can't maybe and take his life away. And even if you want to use force, the force must be commensurate. You cannot use a gun. In a situation where you have no gun, you can use some other things that are lesser.
This is something that I think it's very lacking within the Nigerian system.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. The force has to be equal to the action.
That's what I'm saying. Commensurate.
It cannot be more than.
It cannot be more than.
Where it is more than, you have obviously overstepped the mark.
Overstepped the mark.
You know, we are going to allow you to call in soon, but we just want to go through some of these so that we can pick it up, so that we are not overshadowed by all the phone calls.
Yes.
So do bear with us. And moving on to chapter 34.
No, I've not finished under section 1.
We're still going under section 33.
33.
Okay.
So, those are instances, like I've said, when they want to arrest, lawful arrest, to prevent somebody from escaping from lawful custody. Those are the instances where you can say, okay, you want to deprive. If anything happens, if somebody dies as a result of that, then they will now say they come under section 33(2).
Right.
To say that because they were using force or something like that, that was that person that was being deprived. That is the only condition. Section 33(2).
Yes, but then we've both agreed here that the force must be equal.
Must be commensurate.
Commensurate.
Now, when you look at that particular chapter, say, deprivation of life. Now, you ask yourself, with all the killings going on in the northern part of the country, the Boko Haram menace, the extrajudicial killings, the kidnapping. Now you want to ask yourself, can the citizens sue the government for breach of those rights on that particular section?
I will allow you to answer that question.
No, I'm just saying.
You're just saying.
Yeah.
If
governors, presidents, can they be sued for not?
Is that a question that we're going to put out to our audience?
Yeah, to our audience.
So we're going to,
in line with
it's just been mentioned.
Can we sue the government for breaches of those rights?
Considering the kidnapping, considering all the extrajudicial killings,
Boko Haram
menace, and all the menaces that goes on around the country.
Can the citizens
the question is, can the citizen sue the government for breach of
section 14(2)(b)
of the Constitution?
Yeah.
Now, if you have downloaded the Constitution, priscilla.com, you get your copy. If you get that, section 42(b) will tell you whether or not. So we can't wait to hear from you on that. But before we do that, we're going to go on a short break. So don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Politics, a live-phone-in program with Cardio Ogodamisi every Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Ben Television. Never a dull moment this summer on Ben Television, Bridging the Gap channel.
Watching Ben Television, the Bridging the Gap channel.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Just before we went on the break there, we were asking the question, in light of the Boko Haram menace, in light of the extrajudicial killings, in light of the kidnappings that result in killings at times, in light of all of these things that are going on in the country, the question, is, can the Nigerian public sue the Nigerian government? And in case you're wondering about that, you can go to chapter 46.
For section 46.
Sorry. We're at chapter 4, section 46 of the Constitution. Section 46(2), I believe, would tell us whether or not that can happen. We're coming to that, and we're going to allow you to call in a moment. Just bear with us again as we continue. Just learn a little bit more about our fundamental rights, fundamental human rights, if you like. Like I said, if you have not downloaded a copy of that Constitution, priscillawigbo.com is where you need to go to, and you can download your copy. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. Find us and send in your, let's hear what you have to say, okay?
Yeah, like I posed that question. So can the citizens sue the government for breaches of fundamental human rights? When you look at section 14(2)(b), it says the security and welfare of the person shall be the primary responsibility of governments. But those rights are under chapter 2, and we discussed they were not enforceable, not justiciable. But when you come to chapter 4, all the rights specified, can you sue? Can you go to court? Do you have a legal standard to go to court and say, yes, my right has been infringed? Yes, section 46 answers that question, that you can go to court where you have the right to say, my right has been, there are 3 issues there, has been, is been, or likely to be contravened.
Your rights has been, it's been, or likely to be contravened.
So you can apply to the court to say, yeah, my rights.
Now, the other question I have is this. The country is like 36 states.
Yeah, 36
now,
states.
Obviously, Boko Haram is not operating everywhere.
I know. It's not operating everywhere.
And, all of it's not happening everywhere.
But of course.
But then when we say sufficient local standard.
No, local standard has nothing to do with whether you are, it's in the public interest.
I know. Bear with me. That's what I'm coming to that. In the public interest, if I, who is in the South, wants to sue because of something that's happening in the North, do I have sufficient?
What I'm saying,
I know I'm a Nigerian citizen. I know these are my rights, but I'm in the South.
Anybody can sue by virtue of fundamental enforcement rules, procedure. It has categorized those people that can go to court to challenge.
Okay.
Unlike in the past, the issue of local standard has nothing to do with fundamental human rights.
Okay.
Provided it is in the public interest. You can go to court because the court has specified under that particular section fundamental enforcement procedure rules.
Okay.
You can say, okay, even it was signed, I think it was signed in 2009, and it says no court shall say because you don't have a local standard to sue. Yeah, it's there. Paragraph 3.
We're coming. There's so much. There is so much to get out of this Constitution. And this is why I continually say, download a copy, tune in, because if we don't know what our rights are, can you defend it? Can you demand it? Can you actually seek for it if you don't know that it's there for you? But if you know that it's there for you, then naturally you can ask for it. You can question why. Douglas has been holding for a while, so let's hear what Douglas has to say. Good evening, Douglas, and welcome.
Yeah, good evening.
I think asking about the question of whether the citizens can actually sue the government, for example, using like the Boko Haram menace and lots of all the kidnappings. I don't know how productive that will be, and to what end that will be either. because it looks a little bit cumbersome. But if you look at specifics like the extrajudicial killings, at least you have a specific institution, the police, that you can actually sue with regard to that. But I know if you look at it against the backdrop of that, lots of all the problems we've had with poor governance and stuff has led to the poverty and led to issues with lots of young people not being in job and unemployment, and actually leading to these kind of groups like Boko Haram and the kidnapping. You can say under that proviso that maybe the government, has actually created this monster, and then so being you can say that you want to sue them because there's been a breach of fundamental human rights because the government has not done over the years what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay.
But like I said, I don't think that would be productive at all.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're talking of suing specifically institutions, then that probably will make more sense.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my
Thank
contribution.
you. We always appreciate your contribution, Douglas. Thank you so much. As he said, it may be cumbersome to try and do the whole thing.
I know it's just a poser that can you sue the government because of all these human rights violations in the country? Can you sue the government? When you look at section 306 of the 1999 Constitution, says you cannot because they have immunity. I mean, the president, governors, and what have you, you cannot sue them while they are still performing.
So hold on, we're going in, out,
that's
in,
what I'm saying.
out.
Yeah, because that's
because in effect, 1 minute we're saying it's doable. The next minute we're saying it's not doable because this section says that. Yes, I understand that.
Security and welfare of the person section. So it is incumbent on the president or the governors to ensure security of all persons. That is what the Constitution says.
And where they fail to do that.
And when they fail to do that, Section 42 says you can go to 46 to say...
Under human rights.
Under human rights.
But then you mentioned also that in Section 306...
No, I said 306. We are talking of suing. If you want to sue the government, can you sue the president while she is still performing? Because there's immunity against suing the government while they are still performing, so you cannot do that.
So what you're effectively telling me is that you can sue them when they're out of office?
You can, you can.
But not whilst they're in office?
No, because there's immunity. But now that the National Assembly...
Yes, I voted against removing... They're voting for removing the immunity.
I'm not sure if they're going to uphold it anyway. I'm not sure.
Well, let's see. The reason why I was asking that was so that we will get it clear.
I'm not sure whether
currently the nationals the motion has been moved to remove the immunity so that governors, presidents can be sued whilst they're in office. But where that is not happening now, as it is now, you cannot do that until they're out of office. But it's still doable. It's doable. It's only a 4-year term that they're in office for.
Probably.
Well, that's what they're supposed to stay for. But, sometimes they stay longer. Okay.
So now, like I said section. When you look at section 14(2)(b), it was under chapter 2.
Yes.
So, and we already know that those ones are not enforceable.
Yes.
Justiciable.
Yes.
So, and I said part of my recommendation last week, if we are possible, the national government can move those rights in chapter 2 and bring it under chapter 4.
For chapter 4, then it's
enforceable, so that we can apply section 46 and said, yes, my right has been infringed upon, I've been violated, and I want to.
Okay, we have Chris on the line. Good evening, Chris. Chris, do I still have Chris? Okay, perhaps I have Princess Rose. Do I have Princess Rose?
Yeah, please. I want to comment on the topic people are discussing.
Okay, sir. Can I have your name and where you're calling from, please?
My name is Chris, calling from London.
Okay, Chris, go ahead. What is your contribution or point?
All right. You said a Nigerian citizen can be able to sue the government. I want to ask, who is this government? The government is you and I, who will still go back and tell the barrister or the judiciary that this is what to say. Secondly, under the law enforcement, like Priscilla said.
Sorry, sir. You said, can you repeat that again for me?
Who are these governments that we are going to sue? Is it not you and I that know the good and refuse to do it?
Well, I am certainly not the government, and neither are you. We are the people of the state, as it were. And government are those who has been elected to protect. And let's not misunderstand, these are the provisions of the Constitution. So it's there for you if you choose to, if that's what you want to do. The whole point of the program is to bring about understanding so that you understand what your rights are, what you can and can't do. Thus, we are talking about what we can do, and we're also mentioning the sections that doesn't permit also to do, some things. So please continue with your point, sir.
What I want to ask, like Priscilla said, someone from the south, like eastern part of Nigeria, whose cousin or relations has been killed in the north, that knows the right and the law, can he sue the government of Nigeria and win the case? Which the question is no. Because the Nigerian constitution that you people are reading is being drafted by the northerners.
Sir, I need to stop you there. Sir, I need to stop you there. I need to stop you there. As I said earlier, the Constitution, it's not based on religion, neither is it based on our ethnicity, but it is the fundamental instrument of governance that we have. And whether we were there or not, when it was written, whether it was fraudulent or not fraudulent, that is not the issue or the question today. It is for all Nigerians, whether you're in the south, the north, the east, the west, or in the central. It covers all of us. So it's not a question of it was drafted by the northerners. I'm not going to entertain any cause that speaks of a specific group or blame or points fingers. We are not entertaining those calls here. We are speaking about solutions and education. And if you can participate with us on that, we are very, very grateful. Princess Rose, you're on the line.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, man. Yourself?
Yeah, I must commend two of you. Both of you are doing a good job. I love it.
Thank you.
What I want to say about the Constitution is that in Nigeria, people have right to sue the government if they are in the problem with Boko Haram. And I believe that is the reason why this government, if anything happens, they quickly pay them compensation. Because they know that if they sue them, it will not be good on their. That is the reason why they are paying compensation. Okay. So in Nigeria now, we can see it many times. If they kill anybody, either it's Boko Haram or anything on any that, they give them compensation. I want people to be watching NTA properly, not to wanted to talk on the television alone. Because when you are watching NTA, most of the time through Ben television, you'll be seeing what is going on. Because the government, they are trying their best. They can't be there the way we want it now. But for us to be speaking the truth, reality, that is the important thing and the good thing.
Okay.
For our life especially.
Okay.
So I believe they have right to sue the government. And they are trying their best.
Princess Rose, we appreciate your call. Thank you. Now, I want to hear from you. The show is almost over, believe it or not. This 1 hour always seems to pass by so quickly. If you're watching us from Abuja, if you're watching us from all over Europe, it would appear that my London or UK viewers have the monopoly on this phone line. Please beat them. Do your best to beat them. So if you're in Italy, Germany, and France and all those places, call in. We're waiting to hear from you.
Chris said something. Somebody in the north.
Yes.
And somebody in the east.
Yes.
I've just cited a section.
Okay.
Fundamental human rights enforcement.
Okay. And where?
Paragraph 3. No, it's just part of the rules. You know, when you have constitution, there's other laws that you have to.
Absolutely.
Which is the procedural rules. You know?
Yeah.
And under that particular fundamental enforcement rules, 2009, it was signed by the former Justice Kutigi.
Okay.
And under it, paragraph 3 says that the courts are obliged to welcome public interest in human rights cases.
Wow.
And what that means is that even if you don't have local standard you can still go to court.
You can still, they will still hear you.
They will still hear you. Unlike
Yes.
before that the court will ask you, you don't have
local standard, you can't be here.
Your rights are not directly affected.
Yes.
But now under the particular
section. Let's mention that section again.
Fundamental Enforcement Rules 2009. It's part of the, you have the Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
Now in Abuja. And they deal with human rights violations, abuses, and
all of that.
So they come under particular paragraph to act in the interest of the people.
When human rights are violated. Okay.
And that is why you have the commission, National Human Rights Commission, and the person that is there is really doing fantastically well.
Okay.
And when you look at it, it says you can go to court,
right?
Not because you don't have local standard. It has been removed.
Okay.
Unlike in the past.
All right.
So just like what Chris said.
So Chris is worried. So Chris, if you're still watching,
under that particular paragraph, you can still go to court and challenge.
Mrs. Eweje is the constitutional expert. She was teaching it for a number of years in Nigeria. In fact, if you mention Nigerian constitution in her sleep, she will wake up and she will tell you. So, as she has rightly told us, you can still do something about it if you so desire. It matters not which part of the country you're in, but your rights is there and it should be respected. We have Michael on the line. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you tonight, and where are you calling from, please?
I'm fine. I'm calling from London.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, I didn't come in at the beginning of the program, so I don't really know what the topic is. But of course, I know it's about Nigeria, and anything about Nigeria would,
you like to get involved.
Attracts my interest. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me just quickly tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me quickly tell you. The program is every Monday. It's called 2015, and we are looking strictly at our rights within the Constitution. Asking the question: is the Nigerian Constitution relevant? Those that govern us, are they governing us, according to the Constitution? And do you know your rights within the Constitution? And do we use it enough as the Nigerian public? So that's what the program is about. So at any given time that you tune in, you will meet us discussing the Constitution. Today in particular, we are on Chapter 4, speaking about the fundamental rights that we have, as a Nigerian. So I hope that helps. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll start with the relevance of the Constitution. I really don't believe that the Nigerian Constitution, as it is right now, is legitimate. Yeah. I mean, look at all the. If you want to do something, you learn from those who have done it before, and done it successfully. Look at the United States that has a constitution. The people wrote their constitution. We didn't write that constitution. It was imposed on us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to stop you right here. I've already explained. I know you came in the middle. We know we didn't write the Constitution, but it doesn't change the fact that it is our governing instrument. It is the principal governing instrument that Nigeria has. And therefore, whether we wrote it, we didn't write it, it doesn't mean to say that it doesn't have any bearing on us. We actually wrote it, it's just that they didn't consult the rest of us when they were doing it. It was written and it was ordered by those we elected to govern us. Yeah. And so, it's our Constitution. Yeah. So when it comes to this, we've had this conversation over the last few weeks, and we cannot continue to go on that. Whether it is fraudulent or not, it is our Constitution. Let's understand that. That document is not going away until we make it go away. Are you still with me?
Yeah, okay, based on what you've said, yeah, we are not practicing the Constitution as it is right now.
Okay.
There is no, most of the government officials in Nigeria, politicians in Nigeria, don't even follow the Constitution of their own party, not to mention the Nigeria's Constitution. Yeah. We're not following it. So really, it is not the kind of Constitution we have that matters here. It is how much we're willing to, follow and abide by the Constitution. That's the main problem we have in Nigeria.
So then where government officials, as you have said, are not following the Constitution, for instance, what do we do? How do we change that?
Well, I think it's going to be a process.
Okay.
The change is going to be a process, and it's going to be a difficult one. I'm happy that right now we have another party that is a formidable party that has come up that, is grown norm, which means the laws were made. I'm making reference to a recent case right now where the court of law had to free Mustafa.
And I have read on newspapers that there was some political motivations towards it. How would you want to reconcile these issues?
National Assembly, if you look at the section 4, say the powers of the Federation to make laws for the good governance of the country is actually with the National Assembly. It is their prerogative. They have the right to make laws for the country, for the good governance of the country. So when we talk of laws are made for them, and there are procedures to be followed in the National Assembly before laws are made. You have the bills being presented before the House, and it goes through committee stage, a report stage, and what have you, before it's eventually passed into law. And of course, you have to have at the back of your mind, it must have the president's assent at the same time. So when you look at the procedure of lawmaking, it's very cumbersome. And sometimes because of a peculiarity in Nigeria, it's always very difficult to get it through. Yeah. And just yesterday I was reading in the papers that we have about 28 private bills that have not been passed into law.
I wonder why.
So we have a lot of challenges in this area.
We do, but it's not just unique to Nigeria. I think it happens in most democracies.
Democracy.
There are bills that get stuck up because obviously it has to go through the process. So let's hope that they can improve in that. Benedict, I hope we were able to deal with your question. We have George on the line. Good evening, George.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, where are you calling from, please, sir?
Calling from Surrey.
From Surrey. Go ahead, sir. What is your contribution or your point?
Interesting program, because the issue of constitution of Nigeria has been so serious subject. A lot of people just talk about constitution given by the military, and people say it's rubbish, and that's what we've got. We need to work with it.
Yes.
What I was going to say is, if there's a way to put like the bullet point or PowerPoint on the
okay, your line is breaking. George, I don't know what's going on with your line, but it's cutting. I think I got that point. If there's a way we can put a PowerPoint of the facts maybe up, we will try and do that for you on the website. George, I'm told I have a minute to say bye-bye, so very quickly. My production team are laughing.
Well, we're discussing fundamental human rights. It is, incumbent on us to know what are those rights, how we can challenge it, where it is infringed upon, or likely to be infringed upon.
Mrs. Eweja, as always, thank you so much for being here. We are coming back next week by God's grace, and we're going to continue with chapter 4. And as I've said over and over, if you don't have a copy yet, go to priscillawinkwo.com, get a copy of the Constitution so that you can be ready for next week's show. Now to Uche, to Leslie, to Ronke, to, of course, our learned friend, myself, we would like to say good night. Thank you to the team for being here, and thank you for staying with us every Monday. Hope that you will be with us again. See you then. Take care. Enjoy your week. Bye.
I pledge to Nigeria my country to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend our unity and uphold our honor and glory. So help me God. Nigeria, great nation. Politics, a life-running program with Cardi Ogodamisi.